thanks for everybody for making time and joining us today. We're excited to be here and just grateful for the opportunity to share some industry expertise and experience as it relates to unlocking CTV growth for your agency by leveraging CTV partnerships. With me today, I'm Brian Urquhart, the moderator for Digital Sales Director here at Strategus. And with me are Kimberly Hood, Senior VP of Media Business Strategy from MP&F Strategic Communications out of Nashville. We also have Courtney McKinnon, Media Manager from Chase & Co., based out of Lehigh near Salt Lake City, Utah. And we have Jocelyn Smith from Andwell, Media Supervisor based out of Louisville. So welcome, everyone. And thanks again to everybody for lending us this knowledge that we're about to share on their experiences. So the first question we're going to start with, a little bit of a warm opener for everybody. It's going to go out to everyone. We'll start with Courtney first. But each participant will have a chance to answer this, and we'll start to get a little bit more granular from there. So Courtney, and then to each of you, be please thinking about it as we dive in. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for agencies with CTV today?
I gotta say, we are definitely spoiled with the data and capabilities that come with it. So being finely targeted to reach our exact audiences, the kind of pixel tracking and attribution that we can get, the fact that there's constant innovation to just keep pushing further and further. It's a world of difference from old school television where you place your spot, and if people saw it, they did, and if they missed it, they didn't. You know, with this, you have your guaranteed impressions, and you can see exactly how well you're performing and build and optimize from there. It's spectacular.
Great answer. Thank you. And then we'll go ahead and simply around the horn here. So Jocelyn, you're up next. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for agencies with CTV?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Courtney said with the vast amount of data, but also just the amount of inventory that we have to tap into. It's all over the place at all different locations, whether it's buying a specific Hulu or Peacock, but then you have all the other channels and platforms that you can tap into, and just finding something that can be a great aggregator, knowing that we want to hit the most reach and hit the widest amount of audience that we can. And definitely biggest opportunity to get the most eyes on your product or service or whatever you want to be advertising.
Well said, well said. And Kimberly, we'll wrap this question with you, please. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for agencies with CTV today?
Well, I'm not going to disagree. One of the biggest opportunities for us with CTV is expanding our clients' reach across platforms where people are viewing streaming, both live and on demand, filling that depreciation gap that we continue to see by the loss of viewership from cable, and increasing the original and custom content that has become really popular that you can now put your client in. And then the other big opportunity is the targeting, which is so rapidly growing in sophistication and precision, and that can be applied to CTV. It's a fantastic way to support any broadcast platforms by reaching the viewers that are most likely to take action. So it's a very great supportive tactic as well.
Yeah, I think that's a reflection too of just consumers and the consumer shift, right? The ability to have that reach and expand based off the scale that's now available. So now that we've identified what the biggest opportunity is, we want to start to kind of look during this first section of when it may be best to bring in outside vendors or partners for this specific need. And the first question that we have is actually going to go to Jocelyn. So we'll start with specific questions for each of the panelists. Provide them an opportunity to answer. If any of the others have some color they want to add, please feel free. Otherwise, we'll go right into the next question to the next participant. So Jocelyn, what are some key indicators for you, right? We're going to start, we know connected TV has grown tremendously. There's a great opportunity, whether it's reach, data, targeting, scale, to reach consumers if they've shifted their consumption habits. What are some key indicators that it's time to delegate connected TV tasks to external experts? And how can agencies determine when this shift is necessary?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific time or really key indicators other than kind of what we all mentioned above on the previous question of there's just so much out there. And I think us as great partners or clients and buyers and planners, we know a lot and we educate ourselves in the whole ecosystem of how it can all work together, but we're not specifically experts within each designated platform. So in the sense of CTV, we want to lean on partners that are just so educated in it and those that can educate us so that we can educate clients. It's just a nice trickle effect to move it all the way down, and finding vendors and reaching out to vendors and partners that can have wide variety of different things that we can tap into, whether it's new in the space or things that, you know, different vendors have been doing for years and years and years, but they've perfected it. I think that's probably the most important thing to look at when shifting some of our buys to not only in-house, but to outside vendors and partners that we can just lean on their expertise and make them work super hard for us on behalf of our clients.
Well said. Courtney, Kimberly, anything you'd want to add to that? Good to proceed?
If I were to add on to it, some things that I keep in mind is just the scale of the budget and the objective of the campaign. If we know exactly what we're trying to get out of this, it's always great to work with your partners to figure out how you can set yourself up to succeed the best you can. And sometimes you get smaller budgets and you just do the best you can with what you got, and self-service fine, but there's other times where you know you need to perform, and that's where it's great to have a fantastic team that you trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're looking to unlock growth, I mean, I think there's a tremendous opportunity with it. You're managing a lot of items. You have tons of different resources, ideas, and tasks and projects you're managing, and having that trusted partner or expert that you could rely on, I would think would be beneficial. And so we're working to identify when to bring in outside partners. And this next question to that end is actually going to go to Kimberly. Kimberly, what criteria should agencies use to evaluate and select the right CTV partners to ensure they align with their own strategic goals? Because you're managing your own team, resources, internal departments. So what kind of evaluation criteria goes into, you know, piggybacking on Jocelyn's point of relying on a trusted partner or outside expert?
Yeah, great question. And, you know, in my experience, we have to be very, very thoughtful about selecting the right partners to work with. There are a few things that I look for when I'm considering a CTV partner or really any, you know, outside third party. I'll call them partners versus vendors. But I was on the media side of the business for a really long time, and I learned from that what various agencies needed. And now I look for similar things when I'm looking to partner with a third party. So I think I've got like 3 pillars there, and one is pre-sale support, another is timing, and then transparency and optimization. So pre-sale support is really important. I want to know that I can depend on my CTV partner for education, collateral, strategy, things that we need to help us sell the solution through. My expectation is that they, you know, are constantly keeping up with trends, they're attending seminars, they're doing everything they can to keep their staff educated and stay at the top of the digital game. And these are all things that my team doesn't have the bandwidth and resources for. So I really look to them to help us with that so that we can have everything we need at the front of the sale to actually get the business. And then second would be timing. I want to know that I can depend on all of my partners to turn requests around in a timely manner so that my client doesn't have to wait. There's a lot of steps between the decision maker and the actual media buy. And we all know that, but when it comes right down to it, all of those steps taking the most efficient amount of time is really important. So making our clients wait is a reflection on us, not our partners. So we need to make sure that that timeline can be as efficient as possible. So that includes things like making creative swaps, you know, repulling avails, things like that, that generally, if I had my hands on the keyboard and could do it myself, I'd be able to do it relatively quickly. So I expect that of our partners as well. And then transparency and optimization, very important. So I always like to say there's no cruise control button in the vehicle that we drive. So never set it and forget it. Make sure that campaigns are performing well, they're delivering in full, and consistent communication is super important on this front. I had a previous director of mine that always used to say, bad news is not like fine wine. It doesn't age well. So if something needs to be addressed, I want to know about it really quickly and report results within as much detail so that we can show our client the proof of delivery with confidence and the details are always met.
Awesome answers. And we're actually going to probably unpack some of those along the way. So to kind of reiterate, right? Pre-sale support, speed, right? Timing, agility, and just overall transparency and optimization to ensure that continuing to work hard on your campaigns, earning your trust, your support, and your partnership along the way, far beyond the beginning. So we've identified, we're working to identify when to bring outside partners for those elements. This next question is actually going to go to Courtney to that end as well. Continuing on that road, how can agencies effectively integrate external CTV resources? Because Kimberly made it a good point, right? Like you're needing these things for your clients, and they have to happen in an expedited, efficient way, transparently. And to rely on an outside partner for that, there's a lot of trust that it requires. How can agencies effectively integrate in external CTV resources into their existing sales processes without disrupting their current workflows? Because your current workflows and teams and processes are important internally. So how can you effectively integrate external partners without disrupting that?
Yeah. Personally, I haven't seen too much of a difference working with CTV as opposed to any other vendor. So if you already have an internal process where you send out RFPs and your media planning and you're taking care of your documents and you have a media plan and you're watching your budgets, it fits in just like anybody else. Another thing that I always love is when vendors can help us out with research. So giving us a sense of, if you know who your audience is, they can give you a sense of what your scale is for the size of the campaign that you're running and what their recommendation might look like. And then for myself, just to try to keep it smooth, there are a lot of vendors out there who have a lot of different capabilities. And I just keep small little boilerplates on, hey, if you're looking to accomplish this kind of goal with this campaign, these are the people to talk to. If you're looking for something different, try option B over here. So it's been a simple and easy thing for us to integrate for sure.
So, I mean, would it be fair to say then you would expect your CTV partner to perform as your other traditional or media partners,
yeah.
right? So whether it's digital, traditional, they need to retain the exemplary characteristics of your partners as it stands across the board, and you're uniform in that.
Yes.
Which is consistent with your brand, which again, we'll unpack here in a little bit. So next question is going to go to Jocelyn, continuing along the path during this first section of when to bring in outside partners for that. You've identified, you're evaluating based off of criteria, you're learning about who might be the right fit, you're needing it to be consistent with your existing partners. Along the way, you may identify some potential challenges. So what are some common challenges agencies face when expanding their CTV service portfolio? And how can they overcome these challenges while preserving brand integrity? Because that consistency, again, is important.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate kind of everything we've already spoke to before of just there's so much out there. And like I said, I think we're all brilliant buyers and work really hard on behalf of clients, but we know so much is what we learn from our partners. And so leaning in to all different partners and not just one, but looking at everything out there and just trying to learn from each one. But some of the bigger challenges that I've seen is just where should I purchase inventory and how much and all the different costs that go into it. And is it remnant inventory? Is it first party? Is it top tier? So finding and leaning on vendors to tell us what is best, but then just doing our research when looking into it with costs and inventory. And then just making sure the brand identity and brand integrity being preserved for our clients, making sure that we're purchasing inventory, like I said, that's top tier and not kind of last, or looking into frequency caps and all the great things that need to go into a buy. So yes, we can rely on vendors and partners and go to them and trust them, but just becoming educated and tapping into all the education pieces like webinars or just learning what new vendors have to offer and just hearing what they have to say and trust them, but also use some of your knowledge in the back end of all the buying that we've done for X amount of years.
Ties back into what Kimberly and Courtney were touching upon, right? Just about like transparency, right? Pre-sale, research. These are consistent themes when evaluating partners. And as you evaluate them, select them based off that criteria. In the event that you identify certain challenges, you're well prepared for them. You know them in advance. You know what to look for, and it's based off of your experience. And got to have the right partner for that. So I feel like we're developing some consistent themes in what you need to evaluate when to bring in outside partners. And the next question to expand on that is going to go to Kimberly here. We've identified this in relation to CTV. There are consistent themes across partners, but in addition to connected TV, what other internal infrastructure should the agency think about when adopting third-party support, right? You're relying on an outside resource, an external partner. How do you position and prepare for that with internal infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple things to consider, I believe. One is, are there tactics that we handle internally, such as, search engine marketing or social media advertising that may need to be factored into the performance of the campaign? And how do those tactics that we perform internally either complement or sometimes compete with the partner's capabilities? So I think here, having a really great relationship with our partner where we can be open and honest about the client's goals and the various solutions that we're going to employ to meet those goals, even if our third-party partner doesn't supply those tactics, just making sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes and that we have, a really good open communication about who's doing what and how it's performing. Another factor is making sure that we have the internal bandwidth within the agency to manage the non-traditional platforms like CTV or any other programmatic, time to understand the platform, the KPIs, the performance, the reporting dashboard, and things like that. Things that are different from what you would look at from a traditional standpoint and those various reports. And so making sure that we have the dedicated resources and the bandwidth internally to, pay attention to that and be knowledgeable and informative about that. Otherwise, including CTV in the buy, it won't be sustainable if everybody doesn't fully understand it.
Which sounds like it requires internal synergy and alignment. That's something we touched upon prior to this, coming into this. In order to achieve your goals with external partners, you got to have internal synergy, alignment, and infrastructure to help support it. Great insight. Thanks to each of you. So now that we've identified when to bring in outside partners, which was kind of the majority of the first part of the session here, we're now going to get into the second portion when you're actually managing the outside partnerships, right? So we know what we're looking for, some potential challenges you might face, what it requires to be successful. Now campaigns are live, you've selected partners, it's ongoing. How do we ensure success? How do we make it better, faster, stronger, hold each other accountable, things of that nature? Next question is going to go to Courtney in this regard. As far as managing outside partners, can you share some best practices for managing relationships with third-party CTV partners to maintain quality and efficiency in campaign execution?
Yeah. First thing that we've already mentioned a couple of times is just having very clear communication, and that's going over your goals, that's going over what the most important KPIs are, who you think your audience is, what deadlines you have to hit so you can be timely, factors like that. So your vendor has the opportunity to think with you, right? You may have a vision of what your campaign should look like and how you want to execute it, but giving all of that color and detail to your vendor gives them an opportunity to look at it and build, right? To give more ideas or opportunities with that. And second is, even if most of the time it's pretty redundant, having consistent check-ins and reporting meetings are fantastic. Just the opportunity to get together, get eyes on everything and make sure that we're happy with it, how it's performing. If we're not, recommendations on how to fix it. Those are definitely my top two recommendations.
Jocelyn, Kimberly, anything you'd want to add to that?
No, I think I can agree with everything Courtney said, and just keeping open communication and transparency back and forth. And if there's something that you saw that maybe the partner is not doing, always ask and bring it up. And they're either already on it or that's something that they can look into, and just, again, leaning into the expertise of them and having them use their knowledge and resources that they have that can tap into more than probably an agency or a client or anybody can have, of just asking and having them do the hard work and research alongside with you to educate.
And would it be fair to say we're hitting upon a consistent theme here of communication, right? Like
Yes.
that's what it takes. And it's not just externally between you and the partner and the client, but internally, right? To understand what the client expectations are, the goals, the KPIs, timelines, how it looks, what their expectations are. And that way you can all have synergy across both internal and external partners, teams, and departments to achieve the goals together, right? Which is what a true partnership should entail. And to expand on that, Kimberly, next question is going to go to you. What role, so, we're identifying communication is key, transparency, everything we've identified so far. Like, how do we optimize, right? What role does campaign optimization play in maximizing the effectiveness of CTV strategies?
Honestly, it's critical. And the reason for that is because anything in the digital space is actually held to a lot higher standard than anything in the traditional space. Kind of what Courtney said at the top of this meeting was, the trackability of digital can almost be a deficit in some ways if it's not being utilized correctly. So making sure that there is a hands-on approach, and it's not always on our third-party side. It's not always an algorithm or a piece of software. I love those, and having those in place and making sure that it is the best that can be employed, but really having that hands-on approach and that human consultation is really important. So being in lockstep and communication, but also making sure that we've got somebody on your side to make sure that the campaign is running like we said it would, it's delivering in full. And if there is any red flags or any missteps that happen, that we're notified about it really quickly. We have to pass all of that performance along to our client so that they continue to spend with us, they continue to lean on us, and optimization plays a huge role in that.
Great point. Great point. Courtney, Jocelyn, anything you'd want to add to that?
No, just again, adding into the, if you saw something that they're not doing, just to communicate it, and vice versa, having them educate you of, hey, next time we should add in this, or targeting looked like X, let's do it this way, for us to then communicate back to the clients, or to internally think through it, and then just to add on to it. I think end of the day, we want everything to work as best and as well as we can, and using partners that have the insight knowledge and can see what's actually running is just always great, especially if we're not the ones within the buying platforms or hands on keyboard, just using their knowledge and what they can see, and make it better and better each time we want to run it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which I think is really cool, because we're talking about measurement, and Kimberly, you touched upon the digital component, right? The trackability, which, when you have machine learning and algorithms and automation, there's definitely this machine element to it, but a lot of the things we're touching upon are human, right? That was the word you used. It was one of the first words I wrote, like, as I was kind of prepping for this and everything, was human, because it's the relationship factor. It's the trust. It's the, I need to know you're working hard on my campaign, that you're going to be there for me, that you can turn things around quickly. And I feel like those are consistent human themes, combined with, of course, the digital tracking, measurability, transparency, inventory, and these other items that could help you unlock CTV growth and leverage the partnerships that you have. So happy to hear that. Now, client satisfaction through all that's, of course, key. We're talking about managing expectations up front, things of that nature. This next question is going to be for you, Kimberly. How do you manage client satisfaction when working with an outside partner? I know that's a little bit of a larger, broader question, but would love to hear your perspective take on that.
Yeah, so A lot of it is about establishing expectations on the front end, and communicating often is really important to make sure that the client is happy. For many agencies, our clients are often relying on us for many of our offerings. It could be public relations, it could be website creation, it could be creative, video production, whatever it is, but it's not just advertising. So it's important that we keep things moving at a really efficient pace, and that our various internal teams line up for the client. So making sure that any campaign revisions are completed very efficiently, and that the work is being done on the account is also visible. So don't let enough time go by and then we get a, request for a monthly report, and we're like scrambling to put together the deliverables over the last 4 weeks. So that's, that transparency again is really, really important. Being available to lend some critical thinking to help us figure out how to improve, upscale, stay competitive for our client. And that definitely strengthens the partnership. But being available for that strategy talk, even if it's, on a moment's notice, sometimes in the afternoon, we might have a team meeting internally about that specific client, come out with a few next steps or questions. And I want to be able to know that I can call my partner and bounce something off of them. So, and then, I think just that transparency, comprehensive reporting, strategy, communication flow, they're all the really important elements that help us line up internally and with our partners, and that strengthens our client satisfaction inherently.
Sounds like, and I think Courtney, you touched upon that earlier, right? Just like a cadence, regular integration, touch points, right? Being able to be there consistently, flexibility if you need to, because you got to draw on whether it is partners, expertise, insights. Those are all key themes, it seems, to appease client satisfaction. So well said, Kimberly. Thank you. And then Courtney, the next question actually goes to, still within the theme of managing outside partners. How can agencies measure the success of their CTV partnerships and the impact on overall revenue growth amongst the agency?
Right. So different vendors have different capabilities. So I would always ask them what they have available. So far, through my experience with campaigns, through Pixels, we've been able to track traffic onto the website, pretty simple, but unique visitors, conversion rate, click-through rate, and then you get into some more of the fun stuff like your foot traffic. There's matchback reporting you can do either through CRM lists or with sales information included, so you can see exactly how much money you made on that campaign. I have vendors who can match back through credit cards, others who integrate with Amazon. So there's a whole bunch of different ways. Like I mentioned, when you start being really clear on the goal that you want so you can build and optimize for that goal is crucial. But if you know what you really want and what you're gunning for, odds are there's a really good way of being able to keep an eye on that and get a sense of how well you're performing. And if not, a really, really good vendor will help you figure out how to make it happen anyway.
Innovation. Yeah, gotta love that, right? Customization, innovation, coming up with new ideas, building things together, right? Maybe that's another key part of unlocking growth in true partnerships and leveraging partners is innovating together, building together, right? What we're talking about industry-wise, has that always historically existed? Perhaps not. Tracking transactions, revenue, purchases, offline matchbacks. So well said, and thank you for sharing that. Jocelyn, Kimberly, anything you want to add? Courtney, it looks like you may.
Yes, sorry. The one other thing I love with this tracking and attribution is with every successful campaign you get, you have an internal case study. So as you're bringing on new business, if you're trying to get current business comfortable with new ideas, having your own internal track record and knowledge of, hey, this performed for us, we would recommend it again, is worth its weight in gold. It's solid.
And I think it's one of the other benefits of having a third-party vendor that is very robust and has, all of the attributes that we've talked about today, is that they're going to have case studies. And being sort of an extension of our team, a true partner, they're going to be able to look into their experience and have maybe some case studies or examples of what worked in a certain vertical. Things like that are really valuable.
So take, build it, manage it, optimize it, and then scale it, right? Share that experience, that expertise, the results to gain new business ultimately is what I would gather, which could overall drive revenue. Thank you for that insight. Well said. And then the next one, continuing along the theme of managing outside partners, is going to go to Jocelyn and Kimberly. Jocelyn, since we just wrapped with Courtney and Kimberly, maybe you want to lead on this one. And then Jocelyn and Kimberly, both feel free to add here. What strategies can agencies employ to ensure their sales teams are well equipped with the knowledge and tools needed to effectively pitch solutions from any of their partners? And perhaps case studies is one of those ways. But please expand upon strategies that you can leverage to ensure your sales teams are equipped to get out there and tell that story.
Yeah, I think the last answers from everybody kind of gave this a nice lead into this question, but the case studies, but also the building together coin phrase of what I think we just talked about of, we come to partners and say, hey, we want to have this outcome, or we want to have this ROI or call to action or whatever. How can we get there? What tools can we leverage? What inventory? What cross-device? All the nice fancy things that hopefully our partners have in their toolkit, and we can to leverage it, but then also use the partners to tell us what we should do and how we can get there in the best and most effective way of using dollars with impressions and reach. So I really like that building together component that we just kind of touched upon of how we can make sure that our strategies are ultimately laddering up to the end goal of what we want clients, but how can we add to it? And adding to it can just be asking the question of, hey, I'd like to see this. How can I get there? And trusting partners that are the experts within the field and have done all their research pretty much for you and can educate you to then make it better and better each time.
Kimberly, anything you want to add or expand to that?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic because personally, I sort of deviate from the norm in traditional media buying. And what I mean by that is, so the broadcast, TV, radio, even some out of home, it's been very typical to try to buy as many stations as possible so that the budget is spread around, with the thought of, if I spread it far enough, that it will get the impact that the client needs it to have. But with anything digital, programmatic, you have so many more tools and resources to tell you if you're spreading it in the right direction or not. So in choosing a partner, I tend to lean the other way. If we can find a partner that has a really broad portfolio where I can use, CTV, audio, display, email, for instance, then I can put together a more succinct but comprehensive campaign for the client. But we can all make sure that all the tactics are working together to meet a KPI. That's proven much better than piecing a budget together out to various vendors and hoping, that they'll actually have a high level service and the commitment to performance. So I like the one stop that, that can get that a third party can give us if they can. And when we can rely on our external partners to stay informed, innovative, on the ever-changing landscape of digital marketing, it takes a big weight off of our shoulders. We like to have partners who can train our team so that we are the best and most informed in the space. And when we're supported by our partners, then we have more bandwidth to generate new business and upscale our current clients. And it kind of creates a nice ecosystem.
Well said. Well said. And then it sounds like you're hitting upon a theme of customization there. Would that be fair, right? Ultimately, you need to know that based off your client's goals and KPIs, you're going to have a partner who's going to be able to identify the right tools that would make the most sense rather than just a broader approach, right? Because each goal, campaign, initiative may be unique.
That's right. I mean, a lot of times what you'll get from a TV station is a spot schedule, and it lines up with programming and, reaches with where the target audience index is, but it isn't as customized as you can get with digital. So we expect that from our partners, is not to get a canned approach, you know, to be thoughtful about each client, each campaign that we have.
Mhm. Mhm. And then kind of like a point to this question or an addendum, right? Just to kind of piggyback on that, because I'm starting to think tactically, right? What does it look like to educate your sales teams on all those possibilities? If you're working with a partner who has a robust platform and you want to customize based off the client objectives, and this goes to Jocelyn and Kimberly both. Courtney, please feel free to add in too. How can agencies leverage that external expertise to enhance their industry knowledge and anticipate industry shifts, right? Because it's going to be about staying ahead. And you talked about like the internal department synergy prior, Kimberly. So like how can agencies leverage that external expertise to enhance their industry knowledge, their understanding of digital programmatic connected TV channels, and anticipate industry shifts so you stay ahead of the curve as it relates to innovation?
Yeah, I can just build off of what Kimberly was just briefly mentioning, but industry shifts happen all the time just with any platform, and CTV is not like anything else that we haven't seen in the past with traditional or within any of the digital space. So just the question is leveraging external expertise, and like we've pretty much mentioned almost on every single question and answer is just they're the experts. They can see what's happening within the ecosystem, and hoping that them being a great partner, they'll come to us and not be super salesy, but to say, hey, you know, that last campaign that you just ran, why don't we add one more element, whether it's a different digital component or a social component or a traditional or what have you, depending on what they have to offer. But again, just leaning into the expertise if they know the ecosystem and they see all the shifts, whether it's industry, meaning by platform CTV, or even industry of verticals that we serve by client industry.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly, anything you want to add to that?
You know, I would just say that the word partner is, I don't take that lightly. And I think that integrating with our team is part of that partnership. And so, you know, I mentioned training and strategy and consultation and things like that, but I also feel like it's really important for our team internally to understand who our partner is and what they're capable of and what to expect and how to interact with that partner so that we can have a true relationship, and really a relationship blooms into you know, something that is much more fruitful for our clients. And so just kind of expanding on that and really solidifying it. I always tell people when I'm, you know, recruiting and staffing up and hiring that I don't do things temporarily. I like to hire people like forever. And that doesn't mean that you're going to work for me forever, but it does mean that we're going to act like you are. And I take the partnerships very seriously in the same way, is that, you know, we need to be in lockstep. And if we are in lockstep, that means that, you know, like Jocelyn and Courtney said, you're going to tell my team, hey, this isn't working, let's turn it off. Or, you know, platform has kind of come under fire and it's not performing as well, or targeting tightened up on, you know, CTV or whatever it is. And we want to know those things, and we want to know them first and quickly so that, you know, and those are all just part of a partnership, you know.
I appreciate your perspective. It's a leadership perspective, really, right there, right? Having partnerships that can last, and relationships ultimately, whether it's in your own employees, your partners, internal, external, and more. Courtney, you want to add to that? And thinking too, to kind of expand on that, like tactically, what might it look like to you? Like, is it, you know, lunch and learns, annual recaps? Like, how can a client or partner support you and your clients in staying ahead of the curve and bringing new products to the fold? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I found that lunch and learns are always super insightful. You know, you might already be familiar with the vendor, you might have done stuff with them before, and they might have their deck with their latest and greatest numbers for the past quarter or so. But when you have the opportunity to talk about, this is what's new, this is what's buzzing, this is what we're thinking about, again, that has the opportunity for them to start thinking for you on how to build, how to capitalize, how to grow on all of that. So always love those. I'm a fan of, I don't know, just being in this industry because we like talking and sharing our success and what that looks like. So there's newsletters I subscribe to, there's websites I check in. There's all kinds of great research out there where people are dying to share, so you can see how they made a miracle happen, and they kind of give you steps on how you can make one happen for yourself. So
Absolutely. I mean, thought leadership is key, right? Regular occurrences, tight integration, bi-weekly meetings, lunch and learns, annual recaps, a lot of different ways that can look like. And I think it boils down to just having consistent partnership, true close integration, flexible availability, and being, you know, expedient throughout that process too. So final portion here. All great insights so far. Feel like there's some different themes. Love hitting on the human element. You know, excited about the innovations that take place as well. Let's get into a little bit of Q&A as we approach the home stretch here, okay? This one, we're going to go around the horn. I'll start this one, go Courtney, Jocelyn, and then Kimberly, and next one will vice versa if that works for everybody. But Courtney, to start with you, can you provide examples of successful partnerships in the CTV space and the specific benefits you realize from these collaborations?
yeah. So far I have, you know, I've worked with a ton of different clients, run all kinds of different campaigns with different objectives. But the one I like to brag about is actually one I got to run with you, Brian. It was for a pest control company, and we started it with very clear goals on what we needed to have happen. We had sales goals that we had set for particular cities. We knew exactly who we're talking to and how we wanted to build it. And we ran it for a summer, and it was incredible. With all of the different attribution capabilities that we had, we found that with our CTV campaign alone, we got a ROAS of a little over 1,400%, which was phenomenal for us. We smashed their sales goals by the thousands. And that is a really fun meeting to have with your clients, where you have an idea of this is where success is, and to come and say, we came this far. Just having those tools and capabilities to prove your worth and capabilities as an agency to maintain that business and grow with them. Magnificent, just the best.
Very cool. Greatly appreciated. And I'll have the record show. I didn't know that was going to be the answer. So very nice of you, Courtney. I do appreciate it. Jocelyn, you have any experiences you want to share, examples of successful partnerships in the CTV space and specific benefits you may have realized from it?
Yeah, not to get too nitty gritty, but specific campaigns that we've run of just adding on different layers of a campaign, you know, starting with just a CTV buy, but then seeing the scale that we could reach. Why couldn't we add on cross-device targeting with it, and then this, and just adding to it and making that campaign from a one tactic campaign turn into this really nicely funneled out, different tiered tactic campaign, all within the same budget, because I could lean into partners that could use it and you know, use my budget to say, hey, why don't you do this? It would make it so much stronger, and overall just better for the client.
Awesome. I feel like that too, Kimberly, before we kick it to you on that. I feel like that ties into the earlier point of like thought leadership and education and things of that nature, because it may start with the test after all the evaluation criteria, things we identified, and it may be a test or it may be a campaign, and it has one component, but the more successful it is, the more you learn, the more integrated you get, the more transparent everything is, and you see the results, then there can be additional opportunities to grow and build together as you activate and gain those insights. So, Kimberly, would you like to expand on that? I can repeat the question unless you're good.
No, I'm good. I think a specific example would be one of our higher education clients that actually fits in the same category of, you know, started out traditional and then folded in CTV and then folded in more tracking. And really the optimization has provided some very valuable insights for us to then go back and share with the client about their audience and how their audience is consuming media and what kind of actions they're taking on their website and things like that. So it's provided a real consultative approach with our client. And I think that, you know, overall, the successful agency partnership leans on the fact that we've, you know, made our partners become like an extension of our team. And I think that having a similar culture is really important there. And that's a big factor. So I learned a long time ago that if our, you know, if we end our workday at 5 p.m. and our partner rep leaves at 3 o'clock and isn't accessible till the next morning, that it's not exactly a strong partnership. And I will say, and I know that you didn't expect this either, but in our experience with Nate, he's been super responsive, even like, you know, on the takeoff of an airplane, he's like texting me, oh, I'm about to take off, but let me take a look at this real quick. And I'm like, that's not what we expected. But just having that synchronous relationship has, you know, made an account like that higher education client grow.
Birds of a feather, right? It's that human element. So thank you for sharing that. And it just, I think, speaks to the human element that we treasure and cherish. And I'm
Yes.
also glad you touched upon the media mix at the end of the day, right? Like we're talking about CTV, unlocking CTV growth, leveraging CTV partners. Happy to speak to digital omni-channel things that nature, but y'all have a lot going on. Marketing strategy, creative, production, traditional, and we're fortunate to be a part of that. So thank you. And bringing it home, last question here in the Q&A portion. Kimberly, we'll go ahead and start with you, inverse of prior order, if we may. Can you provide one piece of advice for other agencies looking to unlock growth for their business?
My one piece of advice is to ask a lot of questions when you're evaluating a potential partner. No question is a dumb question. Every question is important, especially when you're talking about CTV and the current digital space. There are so many questions that we're going to get asked by our clients and our internal stakeholders that it's just really important to be comfortable not knowing and comfortable, you know, putting those questions to every single partner that you talk to and making sure that all of those boxes, whatever those boxes are for your agency, are checked. And so list out the questions and then pepper some in between.
Great points. Thank you. Jocelyn?
Well, Kimberly stole my advice, but just to echo what she said, ask the questions. It's only going to make us smarter. And just kind of what I reiterated, or I'm going to reiterate of what we said before of if you see something that a different vendor or partner is doing, ask it. And typically, I think Courtney mentioned if they're a great partner, they'll make it happen, or they'll figure out how to make it happen, or they'll give you advice on why you should or should not do it. And it adds on to just the breadth of a campaign and what we want to put into making client dollars work as best as we can.
All questions are good questions. And I feel like we got into this industry because of a passion or a purpose. And so to learn, educate, and grow, I think is something we all share. And definitely do it up front as you're managing expectations, setting them, and evaluating partners. So thank you for that. Courtney, last one. Please feel free to bring us home.
Yeah, just like how you should be asking questions with your vendors and partners, ask questions with the client. You know, they have some blind spots where they know they don't know things. They have other things where they have more confidence. Getting an honest sense of how they're performing and what their data looks like gives you the opportunity to find holes, fill gaps, take a weakness and turn it into one of their strengths. So being completely familiar with who your client is and where they're struggling and what their bad news is, so you can work with them to turn it into good news, right? Having that full kind of comprehensive information on who you're working for lets you go to your partners and say, this is what we need to accomplish together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, consistent themes throughout. I think we hit upon the key touch points of communication, the human element, relationships, trust, and transparency, and looking ahead, right? Being educated, relying on partners, asking lots of questions. True integration, I think, is what it requires and what will lead to ultimately unlocking CTV growth by leveraging partnerships. Anything else anybody wants to add in closing, or everybody good to bring it home from here? Good. Well, thank you to Kimberly, Jocelyn, Courtney, all of our partners, all just incredible in what they do. We're grateful for the opportunity and their time to carve time out of the day, share their experiences with you. And we look forward to an opportunity to grow together and help build this industry. Have a great day, everyone.